Film, through its narrative and technique, may reinforce or subvert dominant ideology, in particular ideologies of gender. This visual essay will compare and contrast psychoanalytical film theories in relation to voyeurism and spectatorship of the films A Short Film About Love and Body Double to convey its argument. In A Short Film About Love, we follow Tomek, a young male who becomes obsessed with Magda, an older woman that lives across the street from him. In Body Double, we follow Scully, a struggling actor in Hollywood, who, when down on his luck, becomes obsessed with Gloria, another respective neighbor. Both films pay homage in a way to Hitchcock's Rear Window, but more importantly, by understanding psychoanalytic film theory, we can examine how the construct of the protagonist in each film as a voyeur is a critique of the male gaze in cinematic spectatorship, but also a critique of spectatorship itself. From the moment we see the close-up of Tomek's eye glazing over the telescope, much like a kino eye, we understand that the film is of the subject of voyeurism and scopophilia. From a Lacanian perspective, we understand that Tomek must face the phallic, in this case, the telescope, in order to enter the symbolic order, much like his friend, who has now traveled off into the world and now works for the UN. Tomek also works at a post office. He controls the ebb and flow of communication while sitting safely behind a screen. We also learn that Tomek is learning several languages. The use of mirrors in Body Double is a clear symbology of Lacan's theory of the mirror phase. We see early on the repressed memories of Scully and his relationship with his brothers. And then as the film goes on, how he falls into the porn industry and is faced between the double of superego and id. And in the final scene, we see him accepting his masculinity after entering into the symbolic. He becomes much more macho, confident, and in control. Body Double makes play of Lacan's theory. But in a short film about love, Magda's character speaks out against it. See, for Lacan, females cannot escape from the imaginary. They cannot enter into the symbolic realm, into the symbolic order. They are left only to remain as the other or lost without a language of their own. But in this scene, we see Magda's relationship with Tomek becoming an analogy of these options left to the female subject, and her not accepting that, her voicing her anger, quoting, "You have trapped me." Mulvey talks in her theory talks about the dichotomy between the active male and the passive female. Now in Body Double, Scully is the only one who can see, who can communicate, who can act to change. The symbology in this scene also, where the Indian attacks Gloria, we see this contrast between feminine high heels passively lifting as she is choked above the black Doc Marten-esque masculine military boots. Then in this other scene, we see this overt phallic representation of the drill penetrating into Gloria. The male characters are the ones who are active, who can make change, whilst the females are left passive, only to be looked upon or to be victims. In this scene, There is a questioning against Mulvey's theory of the active male and passive female. As Magda is barely dressed and Tomek clothed with buttons up, there is definitely a contrast between the fragile feminine and the controlled masculine. But the angles of the film suggest a change in the power dynamic. The Magda is now the active subject and Tomek the passive subject. In Body Double again, there's also a stray from Mulvey's theory, as when Scully is being gazed upon, it's also in convergence with his claustrophobia. He becomes powerless. He becomes the passive, hysterical subject that is trapped. Galen Studler, instead of critiquing Freud and Lacanian psychoanalytical theory, uses Deleuze's theory. And to quote her, the use of Deleuze rather than Freud or Lacan is a key difference that marks the analysis of visual pleasure. And she uses it in relation to costuming, but to go on, there's a radical alternative to theories of feminine representation that emphasize Oedipal fantasy, castration, fear, and feminine lack. So in both characters, Tomek and Scully, they become the masochists. And they do not desire to despoil or destroy the woman, but to idolize her, to submit to her, and to be punished by her, so that the father in himself may be symbolically punished and denied. So in this case, the masochistic fantasy of the male subject, the patriarchal norms of gender-defined dominance, where the male and the submission female are reversed. And we see that with Scully, and we see that with Tomek. So consequently, the Deleuzian theory of masochism frees us to challenge the notion of the female as a fetish signifier only castration lack. It also challenges the notion that in Hollywood films, such as in Brian De Palma's film, is always a construct, a controlling, masterful pleasure for male spectators that negates any possibility that men might identify with the represented female as an active, authoritative figure. Body Double does support this theory and does subvert the dominant Hollywood trend through its irony and its narrative and symbology and constant conveyance of the construction of film itself, the sets in the background, the end credits which show the awkward construction to the filming process, especially in relation to the body double. However, the female characters are still objectified. They're still given passive roles. In a short film about love, we clearly see the support of Deleuze and Studler's argument. In the scenes of the mother and Magda, the masquerade and performance of femininity has been dropped, and we see their authoritative control and understanding. A short film about love not only critiques the idea of voyeurism, but also subverts the male gaze and gives spectatorship to the female subject.